August 2nd open. Entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the July 19th meeting.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a new public hearing. Applicant here for that? 11 Stony Road.
We are. Yes, sir.
I will read that in to the record and we will open that hearing. Under the Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40 of Mass General Law as amended in the West Bridgewater Wetland Protection Bylaw Rules and Regulations, the West Bridgewater Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing the 2nd of August, 2016, in the McDonald Brown Conference Room, 65 North Main Street, on a abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by William Felt on the David Cruz to verify a wetland border identification flag at 11 Stony Road is subject to Wetland Protection Act. We're open.
About his notices?
I'll take those.
Just if we get a check off, it was just a couple of came back without, green cards. My name is Bill South from West Shirley, New Hampshire. We're doing
Cheryl, can you see okay?
a potential
come up closer?
subdivision on off Stony Road, Plot 11. What we have is, we're here this evening to have our wetland line, which was delineated by Thunder Chase Environmental, David Gordon. What we have is a BDW to the very rear of the property that you see around the outside, green being the area we're talking about. And there is a small isolated wet area off more into the, just off the middle of the property.
John, do you have anything?
Yes, I do. Just so that everybody understands that's visiting with us tonight, that the bordering vegetated wetland that's marked in blue on that plan is being delineated so that the commission can approve the location of it. And then after that, the applicant and his engineer will then design a project of some sort based on the knowledge that the commission has approved the wetland line and that they know where the boundaries are for how close they can get or how far away they have to be to meet all the requirements of the Conservation Commission. So this particular plan doesn't show a development of any sort or any type of work that's going to be on there. It's strictly for identifying the wetlands. I will note that the applicant needs to include another check for $1,786, which is the remainder of the delineation fee, and that's because we received $1,786 for the length of the wetland line, but it's $2 per foot, not $1 a foot. So we'll need that before everything's all finalized. And the applicant is requesting a few waivers, or at least some direction in where to go from here. So I think at this point the best thing to do is approve the line as shown on the plan, and then if the applicant and the engineer wants to talk about some things with the commission on an informal basis, they could come back and talk to you about that, or even tonight. It's up to them, but I think as far as this meeting goes, it's just a matter of approving the line, and I recommend approval of it.
Anybody in the audience have any questions?
Maureen Hunt, 11 Mill Pond. Has the delineation been done by a second party, verified by anybody else other than the surveyors that the town has verified?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
Hi, Jim Brower. What does this delineation line mean?
It just means it's certifying where the wetlands are
Right, does that
on
mean
the
that they
property.
can, you're gonna approve it and they can build in it, or they can improve it?
It's the first step. It just tells them where the wetland is and where they can and cannot design or work within.
So will there be a future meeting that would
Yes.
then possibly grant them access to build in this area?
Yes. Yep.
And this is the only area that's considered wet?
The blue areas is the wetland line, and then the town bylaw has the 100-foot, which is the yellow line, which they have to notify us in. And then we have a 50-foot do not touch, which is the pink line.
Okay, I live in this lot here, been there over 20 years. When I moved in, there was an artesian well right there, with brick line, the whole works. About 5 or 6 years ago, when the lot was cleared, that was filled in. So what happened to that well?
How long ago?
About 5 or 6 years ago, it was filled in?
We know that, right across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't do wetlands, just
Well, we do.
just this wetland, not the wetland over here?
Well, it's not a designated wetland.
no, no,
How
if
does
it's a
it
well,
get-
if it's a
How
well,
does it get designated?
if it's a well, it's just, I would presume, since you say it's been filled in, I would presume it was a circular device that went down, whether it be tiles or
It was
stone.
brick line.
Brick.
Excuse me, there was a house with a foundation there that was filled in by yourself by firewood.
No, I did not fill anything in there.
So,
My point is that there's standing water here 3, 4 months out of the year.
and that can happen on poorly drained soil, where during the spring months, there may be temporary, let's say, call it ponding of water. As long as it's not a deep pond and stays there for, let's say, 6 months of the year, then that's an issue. But if it's just temporary, it just means it's poorly drained soil.
I just have one thing on that, what do you call it?
Can I, just identification, this is the owner of the property,
On that,
Craig Smith?
that wetland that you're talking about, my stepfather dug that for cows. He had 34 milking cows years ago, for them to drink and for drainage. I have this from the commission, if you'd like to look at it. Way
Which,
back in 1951.
which area are you talking about?
He's
Talking about that front wall.
small ice, that wet area here.
Yeah.
Originally, it was,
Originally, it was dug by my stepfather for cows to drink and drainage.
Okay.
It's a lot of rocky area back there, and it says so in this,
Can I see that?
it's on the last page.
Is that the middle part, the round one?
Yes. That was dug by him for the purpose of cows and drainage
Doesn't
in
look
that
like
area.
anymore.
It says right here that it was, he dug a ditch for that purpose.
Looks more like a vernal pool now.
So what Mr. Smith, right?
Yes.
Mr. Smith has shown is a very old
1951.
farm plan that was prepared by the USDA, and which is quite the normal practice for farmers, where the government would help them with planning out the best use of their land based on the soils, the hydrology, and the type of crops and farm animals that they wanted to have on their farm. And then, as part of the Wetlands Protection Act, a farming operation that has a farm plan has the exemptions to continue farming, whether it be in wetlands or on upland, as long as they have the farm plan. This is an antique. Hopefully you'll hold on to it.
Definitely, I've had it this.
Is that lot in farmland right now?
Yes.
It's
Oh,
a-
it is, okay.
Is it in 61A? I thought it got
Yes,
taken
it's
out. Oh, okay.
61A right
Yeah.
So it would have to come out of 61A.
now. Yes.
But it's still a designated wet area.
Yes.
Excuse me? Hi, Jared Pollard, I live at 9 Stony Road. Wetlands can definitely change through the years. I've lived there for 7 months, and what this gentleman was saying, Stony Road floods routinely every time it rains. Water doesn't drain for up to 7 to 14 days, even during this hot weather. It's not evaporating, it doesn't drain. The soil was so wet at 9 Stony Road when I bought the house, the guy told me it didn't flood. Day I was closing, it was pissing water through the foundation, so much that I had to dig trenches through my whole foundation. And we've had consecutively 3 years running the driest summers we've ever had on record. So I'm wondering, I'm familiar with Thunder Chase Environmental, if they did a historical wetland mitigation study and if they did any pump tests in the area to really see where the water level is even now in the driest of times, because my experience and what I do for a living tells me that that area on a wet spring or a good summer is an absolute wetland all the way through. And it's borderline swamp, to be honest with you.
Where is your property?
I live in 9 Stony Road, I'm
Just right up here.
right up here, and everything pushes that way from that property, it's pitched.
Yeah, this is a high spot. Stony Road, you get nothing but erosion down here. All you have to do is drive down there. There's a very large pine tree right here. And between the snow plows and the water that runs down there, it is eroded away from the roots of that tree.
Now, that land hasn't been altered at all whatsoever. So, over the years, putting in Stony Road and Mill Pond, they've altered it.
Mill Pond has made the pond that is to the right that I
Yeah.
own, has made that bigger, and the wetland has come closer to my house. But this area is dry, even that,
Yeah.
whatever, the ditch there, excuse me, that you're talking about, I've never seen water in it.
I think if the commission, if I could speak, if you notice on the topography shown on our plan, we have 120 elevation here, 118, 119 elevation here, all going down to an elevation of 110. As it stands now, the property normally or naturally does drain from Stony Road back
To the pond, yes.
to this bordering vegetated wet area that in actuality comes around back on Mr. Smith's property and actually comes back through here and all funnels down in that direction. You
So what
can
is
see the
the-
conservation land here is well, and the line that comes down in that direction.
There's a brook that feeds that pond, and it
There's a-
goes to the
there's a-
pond from Crescent, and it goes underneath Crescent Street to that.
The elevation here is 120. The elevation here is 113. I'm telling you, it drains downhill.
So when they put in those lots,
If
they
they
did
do
it
anything to
that way.
improve that lot and raise it up, I'm gonna get a lot more water than I already get.
Yeah, in any of our, any of our plans that we would be submitting to the planning board is gonna show mitigation. We're gonna certainly have drainage. Most of the time, if we have a site that is contributing off-site onto adjacent properties, we have other subdivisions with, we've actually constructed swale. It allows the surface water to be collected on property and then just a natural flow back towards where it naturally goes now.
So it's an
There's
undeveloped
mitigation.
lot right now.
Yeah, it's pretty much, it's all wide open. I've been working on it for a few months now and throughout the winter. And we have it very dry, both winter and summer, so it's certainly, water.
even if that was to be developed right there, or any other lot, normally when you go to do a lot, typically you put the drainage in so there's no extra water that's gonna come off that would normally get into the other people's
Right.
basements,
Exactly,
any more than what there is now.
yeah.
And if there is, and you have to,
With the
do over
construction
the
of the
plans.
roadway, that you would have, all of your roadway runoff drains, your houses, some will go in towards the road. Most towns now, they're asking for all your roof drains to be, surcharged into the natural soil, so that it's clean water, goes directly in off the roof. That physically takes away some of the runoff, especially if it's running now off-site. So again, this ways through the planning board process, of which all the abutters would be part of the notification of it.
and we wouldn't approve it if it was gonna be any more of a problem than.
Are these two parcels owned by the same
Neighbors.
gentleman?
The two front parcels you see out here have been sold. Mr. Cruz, who's with us tonight, the applicant, He's actually owns and purchased those are Form A lots, those are all still to be built on.
So he's gonna allow the swale to come through his property?
Well,
It depends on.
He's the developer.
purchaser.
He's
I own
the
it
one
now,
that's gonna
he
be the
wants to
developer.
purchase it.
Yeah.
If he's the builder on it, he's gonna have to work to the way it's supposed to go.
Sure.
Okay.
We won't allow it.
So the gentleman is moving across the street on whatever Stony Road next to 12 is the gentleman who's developing the lot across the street? Oh, okay. I thought I misheard that, I'm sorry.
No, Mr. Cruz has bought, there's two Form As on that parcel that right in the front.
Existing, okay.
Yeah, so he's already purchased those,
Gotcha.
and he's just waiting. Well, yeah, just, not so much for the conservation issues that we have, but we have been and worked with the water department. Part of our process and steps that we're taking is to make sure that we take one phase at a time. We've talked with the water commissioners, we're physically going to, through the construction of the subdivision, if we can get the lots that would make it monetarily work, is we're taking the water main from Mill Pond all the way down Stony and connecting it right around the corner to the existing main, closing that loop. Mr. Cruz will be putting that in, as part of, so that he can feed our subdivision, with water, fire protection, and without the need of having to install wells for the single-family home. So, you know, that's already been, we've met with them, so this is our next step before we go into full-blown, subdivision. We need to work with the commission to see what we can, or cannot, be allowed to do under your buffer protection. And that's really what we're here for. That, with the, for the approval of delineation first, right.
Excuse me.
Yes.
My name is Cheryl Keenan. I live at 50 Mill Pond Road. So I live at this house right here in this lot, and we have lots of water. Our house is not built up high. We've been there for 22 years, and water has always been an issue. We're just afraid if there is a house or anything built over here, we're gonna get tons of more water. So we have a stone wall right here. It's always wet, even in the driest. It's always damp. I have lots of ferns all over the place. Nothing dies, everything lives. We just have lots of water.
And at this point, if they were to develop it, the design is supposed to maintain that no more water, and
Zero
typically,
increase.
if anything can be done to improve the drainage situation, a lot of
Yeah.
times they will build that into the plan.
Exactly.
And that hasn't been determined now where the water's gonna go?
No.
No, not at this point, because all we're doing is
There'll be
looking at the
plenty of
lines, so that
hearings
they can
along
figure
the
out
way.
where they can design swales and basins and stormwater management.
So this yellow line is where they cannot build beyond the line.
No,
It's
That's
the
the-
pink line.
that's the pool, I see
The
that.
pink line is
Yeah.
the 50-foot no touch.
They can only go up to
Okay.
that far.
That's the pool of water we always see, because you can clearly see it. Or Google Earth, you can see it all the time.
There's a pond over here, I think you can see it, I believe. What you can see is here, because there's never water in this, there's a pond here that is fed by a brook that comes right near these houses here.
The
That
small
brook
portal.
overfills all the time, also goes up on the edges when it has rain,
Mhm.
and my pond fills.
So that's.
That's, you don't see any water in that part that they're talking about, there's never water in that.
Okay, so the vernal pool, is it? Can it be called a vernal pool?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's sitting back here further?
Well,
Somewhere, does
Could be,
anybody have?
They can't tell.
should I say anything, John?
Sure.
Okay, I actually live in this neighborhood, so I'm across from actually Cheryl, so I'm on this side, and I'm up near the conservation property, and,
Back in this area here?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So all that is pretty dry behind me, all that conservation, it's not wetland back there. But where Cheryl is describing, vernal pool, that small area right there, I've seen it myself, and it doesn't empty.
Where's
So,
that- where's that
this
area?
little area, you're talking the isolated
I
wetlands,
can actually show you if
And
anybody
then
wants.
where the
Right.
small isolated.
if you
areas?
look in there, you'll see on the bottom, you'll see little, vernal, animals, you'll see the little shells, you'll see the salamander, you'll see old eggs in there and stuff.
We
So if you
haven't-
take a look,
I haven't.
yeah, you'll see that too. Whatever it was at one time has now evolved into something else.
Yeah, each
Yeah.
time I've been out there, multiple times,
Hmm.
but I haven't seen it. It's had water in it.
Right,
But
stand,
only
yeah.
in there's a rock right in the middle, it's only that it's a small pond, maybe a 15-20 foot tops diameter here that I've ever seen, winter, spring.
Around it.
and summer.
No,
And-
Yeah.
there's 9
There
fields
was-
around that thing.
Well,
There's no
now,
lines
there
here, it's
isn't
very
now because it's been
clear.
kinda turned over, so
Right.
it's, You know, it's got a whole different, look to it than it had a year or two ago.
Oh,
So,
still on the farmland.
yeah, it's still wet. It's,
Yeah.
One thing I might add that with normal review in the next phase, we do take into consideration all the drainage issues, but having you here this evening talking about them really puts an emphasis on trying to address any concerns that you have about it, so that when they do come in, we'll be looking extra hard at that. And in many ways, we ask them to do just a little bit more than the average to help address a butter's concerns. So I just want to let you know that that's all this that you're saying tonight is sticking with us for the next phase.
And what would be the next phase? Say the line is approved tonight. Do you continue through the phase throughout, or does it then get transferred to the building department at some point? How does that work?
Goes to planning board, as long as it's a matter of right, zoning by matter of right. And then it comes to us, or at the same time, it's coming to here, and it gets reviewed by the planning board, and you have to be notified of any hearings they have, and you will be notified of any hearings that we have. And so sometimes an engineer will do one board first, get all their concerns addressed, and then come to the other one. So I'm not sure exactly what the sequence is gonna be, but you'll be notified about it, and we'll do a review of the drainage when it comes before us.
And with the addition of the water line connection, is that going to improve Stony Road, widen it, or anything?
No, Stony Road's a pretty,
It's a one-lane road.
newly paved surface. Well, one thing that we did, when we met with the water commission, we had a large scale, drawn, blown up scale. What we are showing them that we wanna come down in the shoulder as much as possible. And also in front of these, the Form A lots, there's also a strip that's been reserved for roadway purposes, of which we can sneak over into that for the water main. So we're trying to not disrupt the paved surface that's out there, we're not widening it. It's gonna remain the same. We have one crossing that we have down here that'll be a day delay type of a thing, but it'll be patched and done with. So we've taken into consideration all the trees we've located on a larger scale plan, sat down with them, showed them exactly what we thought was the best routing to go with the main, and so that they confirm or let us proceed again with that for our design. That was the first big part of our phase. And again, when we do these subdivisions, we want any input from any of us. We know what the problems can be on any new development, and then we had, pretty good success in at least meeting with, showing them what we're trying to do, and taking into consideration all the concerns they would have.
Newly paved, that's been paved for 17 or 18 years.
Well, it's gonna do a pavement than that.
No.
I don't live here, but that's pretty
How
good
long did you
shape
say
for
was paved?
17 years.
10?
Oh.
No, it's longer than 10.
When do they pave?
I have no idea.
I assumed it was field when I
It
said
was
field.
paved when I
you know,
got
5,
married,
6,
and my
7
wife
years.
and I have been married 16 years. So it was already paved when she moved in.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's in good shape. That's what I wanted to point out. That's why we're
I'd
trying
like
to
to
stay
offer a
off of
counter
it.
suggestion. I completely disagree with this gentleman. He's saying that the road's in good shape. This is what I do for a living. Underneath it is eroding on both sides because of the lack of drainage culverts and proper structural drainage, which doesn't really exist in this town. I understand that because there's no sewer or drainage. However, the water, right now, we've had so little rain in West Bridgewater. If I challenge you guys at the Wetlands Commission to go over there and walk over there right now, that soil abutting the entrance he's showing is soaking wet right now. If you come to Stony Road and you put a fork in the ground, you hit a rock.
That's why it's called
There's
Stony Road.
very little soil, okay, I looked at the geology of my well, I have some experience in hydrogeology, and literally, guys, there's like less than 75 feet of pellet, which is like nothing before you hit straight stone. And so the water is running, it has nowhere to go. So this culvert, the little bit of wetlands you're talking about, it not only is going to grow when you pressurize and raise and put in the swales and the culverts, And without the proper sewage system, i.e. which West Bridgewater does not have, there's no way to properly divert that water without double widening Stony Road, putting in proper culverts on each side to take the water. Because the water will run down this new road, especially at the elevations you just described so eloquently. And the water will push to the left and right. And driving up the road right now, guys, it's eroding 3 to 4 feet in. Anybody who drives Stony Road,
Yes,
it is
I
literally
agree.
falling apart, guys. It is falling apart. Right now, if you say it's in good shape, it's comical to me.
Well, what my comment was that the little surveying that I've done up and down the road, I know the amount of traffic that goes on there. I'm not saying it was a brand new road, as you're saying, it's 17 years old. I'm surprised it's that old. But it's what we call a scenic road. It's one of the small roads that, of course, the edges are gonna get chewed up, but I didn't think it was in that bad a shape, but I'm not.
No, I just wanted to really emphasize that to the Wetlands Commission,
Yeah.
ask them to walk over and go look at it.
Yeah, the water does, it's eroded, like I said, I have a large pine tree here, and it's coming down shortly. And the plows, it's only at best 1.5 lanes wide. But the plows, they try to get it back, 2 lanes. It's loaded with trees right on the pavement. There's literally a tree here, and pavement starts here and goes around the tree and ends here. It's a nightmare to get down. Now you're gonna add 7 more houses here, 14 more cars you're gonna be using on a daily basis. It's gonna be a tough road.
It'll go from a very safe road, which now I can take my kids on and walk on. The blind corner I live on at 12, it was literally a blind corner, guys. Come around the corner, you have to stop and make sure that you don't hit another car, make sure that there's not children on bikes, there's a lot of kids riding bikes who don't have sidewalks. And, I have a special needs daughter who lives right there. Quite frankly, it's very scary to me to see not only the increase in traffic now, because everyone uses it as a cut-through road to get by Crescent, but added development in there.
Yeah, but you gotta understand though, it's not,
It's not your job, I understand.
no,
that.
it's not, I'm not trying to say anything bad about, you got a quiet neighborhood and everything like that, but if somebody has property here that wants to build on it and is able to build on it, they have the right to do it. If that was your
Couldn't agree
property and
more.
you wanted to do it,
I
I'm
couldn't
not saying
agree
anything
more.
bad
That's his
either
right.
way,
I
but you
agree.
gotta realize someday it might happen that way.
I couldn't agree more, I'm just
And I don't
emphasizing
really-
the lack of infrastructure in that area to support, from a wetlands perspective, guys, not from any other perspective. Go out there and work the property.
Well, you
Don't just
understand, that's
take
why
their
it's
word
called
for it.
West Bridgewater.
Yeah, well, go out there and look, guys, West Bridgewater is becoming a metropolitan small city, whether you like it or not. And the lack of infrastructure in this town is baffling to me, especially when it comes to drainage and water.
And I don't care whether it's developed.
Yeah.
If they put houses back there, it'll look better than it is now.
Yeah, it
I'm
looks
not worried
terrible
about that.
now.
I'm worried about the water. I'm worried about the water that pumps from
Well,
October to
yeah.
February.
That's like we
And then
said.
again, from anywhere from March to June.
Just like we said, when this happens to start up, the whole proper way to do it is not to be able to allow any more water come in on your properties. It's supposed to be for the drainage and everything
But
like
if
that.
you put a swale in, that's just gonna push it out on Stony Road and
Yeah,
it's
it
just
may
gonna
not be the answer.
fly right down.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
he's
we'll
just
work with it.
saying,
Okay.
Yeah, we'll work with it, and you guys will know.
as the process moves on, there'll be tons of detail that will start to evolve, and you can all participate in, with your comments.
And then definitely they want to bring some of those traffic infrastructure
Yeah,
of
sure,
Stony
of
Road
course.
to the planning board's attention.
Yeah,
During
more
theirs.
so the planning board, right?
But like I said, all the concerns you have about drainage, I see the concerns that you have of this development shedding water out onto the street. And I would say that the engineer would be prudent to have a roadway that is downward slope away from Stony Road, so it would be a cut into it to keep their water from coming out and taking away some of that water that's coming down Stony Road and ending down near Mill Pond. That's just one way they can look at it. I'm not trying to tell them how to design it, but I mean, those are the things that they'll look at during their design, and we'll be looking to make sure they do something like that to address your concerns. And then the other thing is any development on the Form A lots out front. Some, as you know, they're gonna have to build the lots up to keep above the water table, like every other new house in town is now doing, and that always sheds water to the street. Well, they're gonna have to match that amount of water going to the street that's already coming off the lots and everything else goes into roof drains and into a swale along the side of the property, directing it back towards the wetlands, which is about 10 foot lower than Stony Road. So all of these things, they're gonna have to keep in mind as they're designing, and we've heard your concerns, so we're gonna be looking for that when they start bringing this in. And you wanna make sure the planning board hears it too. That way, their review is going to be looking at it as well.
So which way are you talking about pushing the water?
The what?
Which way are you talking about pushing the water?
The current design.
To the wetlands at the rear, to the right.
Yeah, the natural grade right now feeds from Stony Road all the way back, pretty much right into the back corner down through here, and it's just a natural flow.
But
You try to keep as much of a natural, look of the property as you can, but you do mitigate, you wanna make sure that all your water is contained, certainly the street water is contained, put in a retention, detention type of a function where it slows water down, gathers it when it rains, and little drains out empty. Those things are all taken into consideration under the planning board rules and regulations, subdivision
So
control.
when you
law.
build these houses up, what's gonna happen to, like, if someone's in my backyard, where's that water from their backyard going into my yard?
Well, again, on the plans, that'll all be shown of grading, finished final grading. It'll show that the water is directed towards most of our drainage areas. Something that we can contain it, slow it down,
That's gonna be impossible.
let it go. Well, that's what we do.
You know, you're at 120 feet
Right.
all through here. Every section outside this green area is lower. Not just over here, every section is lower. So you're talking about building up, but you're gonna grade it so it doesn't drain downhill. I don't understand that.
Again, with this, we haven't done any real grading or
No, but you just said that you would
design
grade the property accordingly when the houses were built up.
Yeah, I didn't say anything about building up, but
It's-
the water table determines everything that we do. Once
Has
we
the water
have-
table been determined how high that is?
have you done perks there?
We have, yeah.
And where'd you find the water?
I believe it was 4 or 5 feet down. in the
No,
areas.
elevation wise, what's the water table?
4 or 5
Yeah,
feet
4 or 5
down
feet.
where we've dug holes. If it's 120, it's probably down 115, 114.
So the water table has gone up almost 9 feet in 20 years? Because I have my sewer plot plan right here, for this lot right here, and it says the water table is 106 feet.
What's the datum that you're looking at?
Sorry, this is an antique too. I'm sorry. Yeah. So right here, you got your water table, groundwater elevation, 106 feet. And that
Do you
was-
have a benchmark on your plan?
Yeah, we're on, they do 83. It's 113 down at the intersection. And you might check and see if that's an assumed baseline.
Yeah, here it is right here. It starts at 120, just the same as his, and
Looks like
ends
it's
at,
very similar.
and ends at 113.
Right. And that would be 113. If you were 5 or 6 feet down, you'd be 106.
Yep.
107.
Yeah, so
It's
it's probably
relative.
following the
Exactly, the contour.
gradient of the land below the surface, 4 feet below the surface.
Okay.
Again, to just assure the abutters, I'm envisioning those front lots all being raised up with fill so that the cellars aren't into the water table. And so you can assume that around the foundation, you're gonna have an elevation of roughly, let's say, 124, 125 out at the front street lots. That would all be sloped down to, let's say, the lot line of, James, is that you?
That's me right there.
And Maureen and John and Cheryl. It's all gonna be sloped towards your yard, but before it gets to your yard, he's gonna have to take and create a higher, like a berm, let's say, but it's not gonna be an unsightly thing, it's just gonna be a rise in the grade, so that the water coming off these lots will get into that swale, not go over the berm into your yard, and then be sloped back towards the wetlands. And of course, we're then gonna make sure that they don't put too much water in the wetlands. We don't want too much water in wetlands, even though it sounds kind of funny that you wouldn't, but we don't want the wetland to increase and get flooded over a period of time. So we're asking them to reduce the flow that goes into the wetlands to what it does today. But you know darn well that with roofs, driveways, and creating
Septic systems.
a mounded septic system, taking a forested piece of land and make it into lawns, you'd think that would be a better absorption of the water. Well, it doesn't. The trees and everything else show less runoff than a lawn does. So we're going to be asking them to create a retention or detention basin to slow the water down before they release it into the wetlands. So we're getting them from both directions. We don't want to see them dumping water out onto Stony Road that's more than what it is today. We don't want to see them dumping water onto the abutters more than what's happening today, and we don't want to see them dumping water into the wetlands. So they've got a lot of engineering to do. It seems, from my opinion, that it's workable. I haven't done any design, but it seems like seeing these many different developments over the years that I've reviewed, that it's feasible they can do this. They just have to really concentrate on addressing your concerns and our concerns while they're designing it, so that we don't have to go round and round with them during the public hearing for a development and make them revise it over and over again until they get it right. So I'm hoping that they hear this message from us and you, that this has to be done, and you know, we'll work it out at that time, and you're gonna be here listening to it all, so.
That's what I was gonna ask you. So you'll see their final plan first before you approve it, to understand what I termed they're trying to do the impossible. You call it clever engineering, I would call it impossible. I really would, because pitch and grade is my thing, and I can tell you what they're trying to do is borderline impossible without a sewer system. If you had a sewer system where you could trap the runoff, what you're saying could be done with the snap of a finger. But honestly, guys, what they're proposing to do, you could pull out smoke and mirrors here, you could excavate, de-excavate, change the whole gradient, change it to stone, pitch it, it's still gonna run hard. And I think that's the wetlands conservation's concern, is that water is still going to push the wetlands.
Yep.
It's going to flood.
Are you saying the septic system's on the right way?
I'm saying septic systems were the right way 50 years ago. I'm saying that.
Do you have a septic system?
I do, and if you.
Is it
hook up
working
a
all right?
sewer, it works great. If you had a sewer line, I'd pay to tie into it.
No,
Because I understand the
but I'm just
value of
saying, they do
properly
work
treating
good though when
wastewater
you
and
do 'em right.
discharging clean water in the community instead of wasting someone's lawn where they're drinking.
But they do work good when they work right.
They work okay, to be honest with you.
But they're gonna add water to the lot, is what the problem is.
I had
Now,
to
you're
cut a
gonna-
16-inch hole in my foundation, get rid of the water, when I moved in, 2 months. And we had a very dry winter, guys. I had to put in double sub pumps.
How long
French
you been
drains.
there?
6 months, 2 months in.
Okay.
2 months in, it
Did you know
flooded.
this when you bought the house?
No, they disclose no water, but we don't have a disclosure law in the state, so I had to stick
Should've
with
looked
it.
into it.
Spring Street gets water, all the houses have to pump on Spring Street.
Yeah.
Well, that's no reason to add more to it.
No,
It's been
exactly.
like that for years.
No,
Well, I know, there's no reason to add more to it.
See, the guy that's on the house.
We shouldn't do any more than what, if they do anything, they shouldn't do any more than what's going down there now.
Well, what you're saying is you guys shouldn't have built your houses either.
Right, so you're gonna,
you know,
connect the water lines. Is there any plan to, put storm drains on Stony Road? Because right now, there's a retention pond at the other end of Mill Pond Road that takes all the water from the subdivision. So, you know, a swale and everything, that sounds cute. I want a storm drain that takes the water and goes away.
The planning board may
Yeah.
ask for that, but we can't,
Okay.
because we're only,
Different place.
yeah,
Alright.
our
That's fair.
jurisdiction's within
It
100
might-
feet.
It'll probably work out a lot better than you think. You just
Like
gotta
I
make
said, I'm
sure-
not opposed to houses.
Yeah.
I just want the water taken care of.
Oh, yeah.
You want it done right.
Yeah. we do.
So if that means
No,
you're putting,
we
you
want the
know,
water
some
taken
storm
care of too,
drains
right.
in to take the water off the Stony.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it's pretty evident right now. If you come in right here, 200 feet up from the junction of Stony and Mill Pond, you will see the erosion You know, Stony Road sits down, at this point here, the elevation where the pine tree is, it's probably 2 to 3 feet tall there, and you can see how the water has
Yeah.
eroded it away. So, you know, I just want a storm drain to catch it, because swales are not gonna work.
You can put on all these concerns to the other boards too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that'll make it
I'll be there.
a lot easier. 'Cause we don't wanna see anything happen any more than to you guys, I mean,
Exactly. And we really.
we're not doing this to
Yeah,
piss you guys off or anything like that, so.
and we're
Neither
really
am I.
We wanna make sure,
protecting.
we wanna make sure it's done
Right.
right.
And we wanna protect the wetlands, I mean,
Yeah.
basically, that's the
That's
key.
what I wanna do also.
Right,
I have
so-
a pond, and since these houses were built, I have, is pushing towards my house. I mean, I never complain, you're gonna build a house, you're gonna build a house, you know.
But it should be done right, it should be
Yes,
done right.
yes,
You
I
shouldn't
agree.
have extra
I
water,
agree. I
right?
agree. This guy is a good builder, I've been working for him for
Yeah,
years.
it's
Good to know.
If you see the plans, it'll be a different ballgame.
Right.
Well, there's nothing you can really decide here
No.
until
No.
you get the plans to do what
Right.
they're going to do.
Right.
I was hoping maybe that you would walk this area where the so-called vernal pool. I'm down there all the time, I mean, and I have never seen water, I've never seen any animals in there either.
Well,
Except
I've
for
been
deer.
there, and recently I was there looking for my cat who was lost, so I was over there not looking, but I just have a little experience with the vernal pools over by the schools and stuff, so I recognized
sort of
what I
without-
saw.
Back in '51, when my stepfather started the farm.
Right, so it's had a lot of time to change, is the point, so that's what happens.
Do we wanna,
Yeah.
Any more questions on the wetland line itself? If that's
Are
what
you
we're
just
really
going to
here to.
add in the vernal pool, are you gonna check that out? Are you going to go back and,
Have you,
I would say that if, with the information that's been brought to the commission's attention, that if the commission members individually or as a group wanna go out, then it would be prudent to continue the hearing so that it gives that opportunity. I would say that, the applicant has, kind of gone over some things with me prior to the public hearing, and that they have some more things to discuss, so maybe it would be a good idea to continue it and let you hear some of the things that they would like to do, and then make a decision at the next meeting, unless you're,
Oh, we're just really, again, we're trying to do the phase accordingly, so we know, that we can continue for the design. I'm not gonna spend my client's money if there's, any issues involved here, so that's the first point. And if we could, after talking with, John, that, we'd love to, to put in, a lotting design, not a full-blown design, but something to come back and sit with you. It would have to do with buffer zones and things.
nothing
That's-
formal, just a
Right,
discussion.
an informational meeting, that's just, we want the input, it's, we don't wanna get to a point and it's not, it's not something that you, the commission, would entertain, and I don't wanna waste my client's.
And if I understood you correctly, you weren't, planning to, disturb the vernal pool?
Well, the only thing that we would entertain is a road coming in here and with a cul-de-sac.
But not filling the vernal
No,
pool?
we could certainly make provisions where, that could be left intact. Leave some of the vegetation around it, so it still has a purpose for what it's standing there now. It's the buffer lines that really control us being able to handle, detention areas,
Drainage
the actual
lines?
drainage in the roadway, its access. So, things like that we'd like to come in with a preliminary plan, lotting plan, and then give the commission a better idea of how we know we can mitigate to certainly taking all the concerns for the neighbors. Anytime we have runoff by natural grade elevation, we're gonna address it anyway.
And that would be informal?
Yeah,
So it would be on our agenda as an informal, which means that if you're looking at the town calendar, if any of you do check that out, Since it's informal, you won't be sent a notification form, but if you look at the agenda, we would have to put it on the town website, and you would see that there was gonna be an informal discussion. You're welcome to come. It's not gonna be something that the commission would formally vote on. It would be just a discussion to see what direction they wanna head in.
And just to assure also, to assure the residents that this is only a process that we're just confirming that there's a wetlands land up there. And the commission is in agreement where our professional partners just come in and mark it out. The second part, we still have to go to the planning board. We'll go to the planning board with preliminary, we'll go through a public hearing, everybody in the same 300 feet will be notified. Any and all your concerns that you'll have a chance to come down to those meetings. We submit the plans, the planning board will have their own independent review engineer address the drainage. All those concerns you brought up, their engineer will address them too. That's just the phase two, that's just the application under the subdivision control law.
So a motion to continue?
We'll entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion. Until next meeting?
Yep.
16th.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. In the meantime, do you have a problem with any of the commissioners taking a walk out there to take a look at it?
I have no
And
problem.
I said, oh, so I
We
abstained.
probably, gonna assume we're not gonna do it as a group, so we won't schedule it, because then it has to be an open meeting with a public hearing, and if we do it individually in small groups without quorum, then
Yeah.
we'll take a look.
There's some low rise, just where something you're not gonna come back.
Did you
and fill it up.
abstain?
I told Kitty,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
The flag will be,
Even though you're really not in the butter.
I think I am really not, but, yeah.
It's always smart to.
That's what I figured out. I didn't want any, you know, there it is right there. That's my house right there. Up your other bank.
Yep.
That's my house. There's the pool of water. Yeah, that's not on that board at all.
Oh, he took
Yeah.
the plan.
So that's. Oh, yeah, see, so this is,
So this is
this,
your
yeah,
house
she's
here?
here, yeah. So it would be like, yeah.
That's north up the sheet.
steal that one back. Unless you
Yeah,
wanna keep
so
it,
it could-
you wanna hold on to it?
It could be over there.
Yeah, that's,
What do you think?
yeah,
Is that
that's,
that?
yeah, no, that's way over here.
That's this one.
I have an older plan, 1989 plan that shows a ponding area here, and then a brook or a trench coming down over in that direction.
Pleasant Street.
Yeah.
We'll be
Uh,
still
I'm-
What it's doing
Oh,
is
yeah,
probably
with that
picking
crossover,
of
I'm
yeah.
thinking this must be the depression here,
What they're asking.
right in there.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, yeah.
Well,
Yeah, that
see,
would
I
be
got-
about where it would be.
That's
Yeah.
the informal
When I was in
discussion.
there, I came
Whoop.
from.
Hey, I like that one better.
Yeah. I came from this way when I came on it.
Where you chap.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is,
Yeah.
this is
Well, that-
definitely,
No, actually,
All those things.
I'm not sure if that's, there's actually, there's actually a registry, right back
Yeah.
over here, John, the
It's
actual,
in the brush, you
Right
can't
here.
see it from an aerial view.
right here, see, this is,
There's pine trees
Yeah.
growing all over it.
it's right in here.
this piece here,
That's a shadow.
yeah.
See, this is, you have the small areas right here next to the cart path. There's a cart path when
Right,
any of
so,
the
yeah.
members go out,
Right, yeah.
that you
Oh,
can walk
good,
in and walk
yeah.
down the cart path.
Goes
So
all
that's
the
the
way to the
depression
field.
there.
Right, right.
So weird.
It's not that big for them.
Excellent having this, thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
We'll check it out. Thank you.
Woodrow Lane,
I got it through.
since you're here, we might as well open up 6 Woodrow Lane for the continued hearing.
You wanna keep that or you wanna pass that?
No, this is,
That's yours?
where are we? Here it is.
So that is
This was a continuation because of the time requirement. Are you here for that, or?
I think so.
So, at the last meeting, we were all really set with everything. My recommendation was to issue, once we had the proper legal ad timeframes, and we now have those, so my recommendation is to close the public hearing and
Issue the
issue a
order of
standard
condition.
order of conditions.
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moved and second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. I'll entertain a motion to issue the standard order of conditions.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And John, do you have signature pages?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, we'll need that before we can close it now. Well, gentlemen, I think you're all set. Sorry you had to come all the way in for.
You can pick it up on Thursday, probably midday or beyond.
Okay, you'll have it set. Okay. I'll see you on Thursday.
Tomorrow.
You'll see me on Thursday.
Some days he's here, some days I'm there.
No, Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Wednesday, I usually have off unless it's evening hours on every other Wednesday.
And I'm here Tuesday and Wednesday, and never on Saturday and Sunday.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. We'll do 273 South Street.
As the previous public hearing, this was a continuation for the same reason about the legal ad. It's a request for determination. I had mentioned how the septic system was out in the front, how the wetlands were to the rear, that the house separated the septic system work area, and what little portion that didn't was going to be controlled by erosion control barrier, and that I didn't see any problem other than I did raise a question about the wetland flagging that was done. And as a result, we did receive a letter from the engineer, and I'll read it. It was dated July 27th, and it's to the chairman and the commission. And it says, "Dear Mr. Hay, I'm sending this email to apologize to you, the commission, and Mr. Delano for any perceived inappropriate wetland delineation procedures that my firm may have performed. In many cases, when my wetland scientist Brooke Monroe cannot get to a site before a percolation test, I will hang wetland reference points for Brooke to proof, allowing my survey crew to locate the flags and adjust them if necessary, based on Brooke's new flag locations and feedback. The West Bridgewater Board of Health is very accommodating with scheduling percolation tests, sometimes in less than 1 week. It is not and never will be my intent to have an unfair advantage over other firms. I hired a professional botanist, and her approved line is depicted on my plan. Please accept my apologies for any perceived misconduct. I am respectfully requesting that this letter be read and entered into the minutes of the scheduled public hearing. My firm provides services for over 200 customers per year, and I have been in business for over 14 years. My relationship with all town boards is critical in order for me to conduct business and to provide accurate and cost-effective services. It is my opinion that my firm, being located in West Bridgewater, should be held to the highest level of professionalism. Sincerely yours, George Collins, President and Chief Engineer. So, the explanation of the wetland flagging was contained in this letter, and I feel that's sufficient for, after talking with the botanist, to allow that the line is correct, and therefore recommend that the public hearing be closed and a motion to issue a -3 determination, which means that It doesn't require the filing of a notice of intent, even if it is within 100 feet of the wetlands. And that's because they have the proper erosion control and designed it to minimize any possible impact.
All right. Any questions? Not, I'll entertain a motion.
If I recall just briefly, he set the flags himself.
Yes.
Did he do any work based on, any surveying based on those flags that he?
That's what his intent was, is to set the flag so that they could continue on with the surveying before the botanist got out there, and that if the botanist had found any, let's say, errors in placing those flags, she would tell them, and they would go back and adjust it. And his letter indicates that that's what he would have done if she had found it. And apparently, she had not found any fault with it.
Is George a botanist? George a botanist?
Yes,
He is a botanist.
that's what.
George is?
Oh, I'm sorry, Leah.
Brooke.
He is not.
George is not.
No.
Yeah.
So that just,
It's just a lot of gray area that opens up, that he's setting a line and then she's gotta dispute what he thinks is where it is. I mean, where if she'd come in, sight unseen, made her decision,
would've been up.
then there's no
Professional.
question having to go back and say,
And if you don't know that up front, then how
Right,
do we
I
know to
mean-
recheck if she, if she okayed the line or not?
Right.
So,
I mean,
Sort of sets a quick tone, I guess that works okay.
yeah, I mean, and after us looking at the line, and John went out, and I know the area, that, yes, the line probably was right. But
so,
It's
not,
just not a good procedure.
yeah,
and,
it's,
and devil's advocate, so if he does it, then others can do it, right?
right.
So,
And it's
you
best to
might be
have the
rechecking
botanist-
a lot of lines if,
Mhm.
how do we know now? That's kinda weird, actually.
Alright. So what was the motion, sir?
A motion to close.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. I'll entertain a motion to issue a negative predetermination.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And 260 Crescent Street, we had a INRAD that was before us, and the applicant has sent a letter respectfully requesting us, them to withdraw without prejudice a application.
Yes, we received that email today, and in it, it also requested that any fees that are possible to be returned, they'd appreciate it. And my report indicates that they had submitted a total of $1,512.50 in fees, which $112.50 is the Wetlands Protection Act fee for filing a notice of intent, which the state gets a little less than that amount, so it's a shared fee, and I'm recommending that it's non-refundable. In addition, they had $1,400 in delineation fees, and I just want to mention that I quickly saw in the my first review of their notice of abbreviated resource delineation that there was no botanist report. So I questioned the engineer, and he indicated that he hung his own flags for reference purposes. And I'm not being facetious. It's exactly the words that he used. And he did it for the reason that they were planning to go to the planning board before they came to us and ask for some waivers of the subdivision regulations, some setbacks and those type of things. And if it was going to be successful with the planning board and they were going to grant some waivers, he would then have the botanist go out and flag it, and they would give us a revised plan. So I did go out to the site for one inspection to check out these reference flags, and I did not walk the whole line, so I did not do the normal review of it. So I believe that I could feel comfortable with returning a portion of the delineation fees. However, there's the administrative costs that the conservation staff had in preparing the files for a public hearing, the legal ads, etc. The accounting department has cost involved with opening up an account and depositing the money, and the treasurer the same. And when we return fees, the same amount of time is going to be accrued to the staffs of those two offices. And so I think we're justified in keeping $350 of that $1,400. And so therefore I'm recommending he be returned $1,050.
Anybody have any?
He's going to have to send an invoice for that, because there's no way that we can just make up that. He's gonna have to bill us for that number on his letterhead.
I talked with the treasurer, and he said that we just have to give him a letter stating that we want a certain amount, and they'll cut the check.
Okay.
So we'll work out those details though, Kitty, because it may be different, but we'll work out the details.
All right. I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing without prejudice.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And a motion to return $1,050 to the applicant.
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All right. I think
Yeah.
we have certificate of compliance
Ye-
signed.
Yes, we have a request with as-built plans, which I think are with you, Mr. Chairman, of Pearl Road, West Meadow subdivision up off of Walnut Street. It's finally received as far as an as-built that we've been requesting for some time. And I've gone through it, and I have a letter from the engineer certifying that it's in compliance with his design. I did not see anything that was unusual. The planning board has done their inspections over the course of the construction, and they may be waiting for us to sign off on our portion before they do their end.
This is for the whole.
For the whole subdivision, roadway and drainage, not for the lots, because the lots have all received the ones that were within the conservation's jurisdiction received their certificates.
How long has that been there?
About 2 years now.
All right. I will entertain a motion to grant the certificate of compliance without a bond.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
All right, at the last meeting, I mentioned the problem with 188 South Street, which is a house that is on a parcel of land with no wetlands. However, the lot is built up because of course, similar to the discussion tonight, the high water table in West Bridgewater. And they had no erosion control around because there was no requirement by conservation to review it. And during a particularly heavy downpour just recently, a couple of weeks ago, they had a lot of silt running off of that lot into the South Street, which ran down the gutter line into the catch basins. And in one case actually went over the edge of the road and onto an abutter's driveway directly across the street and silted up their driveway and parts of their lawn. And so I had reported that at the last meeting. You authorized me to contact the builder. I did make contact with the builder. He assured me that he is going to take care of it, and I will follow up on it as he does, or if he doesn't, and let you know. So that seems that that situation has been resolved, or at least is in position to be resolved. It, again, is a great example of why a stormwater bylaw is important for this town, because that silt-laden water getting into the drainage basins is a violation of our general permit by the EPA to allow stormwater to enter the wetlands and waters of the United States of America, which the EPA has jurisdiction on all of it. With the new stormwater bylaw, this type of land disturbance would not trigger a lot of major procedures, except for a quick review administratively in the Conservation Office. There might be a notation put on a one-page permit that says, you're okay, go ahead, but you gotta have erosion control in, and it must be inspected on a regular basis with a report coming into the commission to show that you're doing it, and of course would require us to go out and verify it. But at least, you know, they don't have to go through a whole notice of intent and all that, but there would be some oversight. So I'm kind of excited to use this as an example of why it was so important, because a lot of people didn't think it was. They felt that it was just a lot of extra regulations that are not needed, but this would have saved the builder his time in now cleaning it up, and all it would have taken is a quick note on the permit, just put erosion control in, and we'll be watching.
Think of how many catch basins are half full or full because of a situation like this.
Dig them out, remember, every few years you'd see.
Yeah,
Yep.
but they
You can't,
don't do that
yeah.
anymore, so how many of them are failing or not functioning as they should, and we get another one of these storms, and
So we lucked out on the other two that were up on, South Street then.
I've been worried about those, because yes, those could do the same thing. They're
That
built
other
up.
one that they're doing could, so
Yeah.
do we have any jurisdiction then before that one
Um,
goes up or no?
It hasn't been approved by the Attorney General yet, so as it turns out that you mentioned that, the third lot now has just come in for a sign-off with the
Okay.
building department. So I'm just gonna put a note on there that they ought to consider erosion control before we have to require it when the stormwater bylaw passes. So that, again, ultimately would have saved this particular builder at 188 all that extra labor that it's gonna take to clean up the mess. And all it would have taken is just one extra step, having an administrative approval from the Conservation Office. If it's a huge project, like something like this, or something that requires a public hearing, then, you know, obviously the whole commission's gonna decide on it. But something as simple as that, it's, the intent will be to have it just done administratively by the agent. And-
we determine whether it should be silt fence in hay bales or just
Yeah,
soft
if it's
hay
a
bales?
if it's a steeper slope,
So
you'll
we can
want
determine-
both.
Okay.
If it's a fairly flat slope, you'll only want maybe just the silt socks, or, you know, maybe the wattles or something. So it's hopefully gonna be a painless procedure with a lot of return on that little bit of investment that's gonna be made into this, because we should be able to prevent some of the clogging of the drainage, which is what the EPA is looking for. And we have, the next item is Spring Street and 48 Harvestwood Drive. Mr. Jack Peters had received a restoration enforcement order from this commission due to the clear cutting of the wetland area at the corner of those two streets on his land. And they went and followed the requirements, and we received a report from his botanist, Mr. Robert Gray, who had outlined that the restoration plan is successful, and that the plants majority of the plants are growing, and the minimum requirement is 75% have to be living after the growing season, and more than that is growing. There are a few dead ones, but between the ones that did survive and the ones that are naturally sprouting out of the stumps that were left, which red maples in particular love to do, they are recreating the wetlands. Of course, there's not the 30 and 40-foot tall trees that were there, but over time, if left alone, that will go back. So, I'm not asking for any decision by the commission, but take a look at it, because at the next meeting, if you so desire, we can take a vote as to whether to release them from it. The construction on the two houses there are kind of coming to an end, it looks, as far as what I've seen by passing by. So I would anticipate they would be asking for something fairly soon, instead of just letting us know. They're probably going to actually request it. So we need to be prepared for it, and I would think that at next meeting we could do that. And the final item is the contractor's yard at 695 North Main Street. The person who was the successful bidder at the bank's auction on the house and property is working on the site, and I spoke with him today because he had no erosion control in there, and even though the people that I was dealing with that lived in that
Fine.
whatever that structure is there, not, it looks like a house, but they had at least put a small earthen berm to prevent the pine bark mulch and that kind of stuff from washing into the wetlands. And in the process of this fellow trying to clean up that mess, he took that berm out of there, and then of course that would be a prime way the runoff would get into the wetland. So he's going to put in the erosion control.
Didn't know what it was with all that stuff there. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So that's, I'm going to keep an eye on that. He assured me he was going to have somebody start it this afternoon, but I'll check it out and keep you informed. And other than that, did I cover everything?
I think the only other thing is Kitty has in her little file, 39 Copeland Street. We have a piece of property that unfortunately is being pulled out of 61A.
That's the barn.
No, this one is up at the,
With the foundation.
this is up at the end. I don't think there's.
You want this?
It-
Point.
It's
Yeah.
the lot at the, where North Elm Street and Copeland Street come together. There's a gas station right at the corner. This would be the next vacant parcel behind the gas station.
They built a foundation or
The,
after
that one is like the next one down, or there may be a space in between, but the one with the,
Map on it, and this is, the
Yeah,
little
I
piece of
see
yellow
it.
is
Yeah, I
what,
see it. Okay.
and this is their
That's the
proposed,
highest one.
that's their
That's the
building
highest one.
footprint.
Yeah.
They have to have for zoning.
Sandy too, if I'm not mistaken.
So they want to build something there?
Right.
It has no connection with any of the other conservation areas, and so typically I would say if it did, we might want to consider it, but it doesn't seem as if that has,
Commercial or residential?
that's residential.
Even though that little gas station right there is,
It might be on North Elm Street.
that's right.
That might be an
That's right.
existing non-conforming maybe.
The selling price is $125,000 each.
How big is it?
Yeah, for that one little.
Yeah.
Seems to be the going rate.
Is
How
it?
much is
Yeah.
31,000 feet? How many?
It's about 3/4, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the house lot.
Yeah, 'cause I think that's what was on there, Stony Road,
Mm.
30, yeah.
Yeah, so.
So if the commission does want it, we would have to write a letter, and if you don't want it, we have to write a letter and tell them no.
I would entertain a motion, we authorize John to send a letter informing them that we're not interested.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
On that one.
Yeah.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And there's nothing really there to save or protect or
Hmm.
would connect to anything.
I sent you a certificate of compliance form to sign for that Pearl Road.
Oh, this is that.
Jack Peters. No,
Yeah.
that's the other
Kitty, is there anything else, or are we?
I think we can leave now.
I thought that was a good discussion with the abutters to Stony Road,
Yeah,
so.
to let them know.
Yeah, it gets a little, it kinda goes in, yeah, it goes in a
Can't blame
different
them for being like
direction.
the way it is.
Oh, yeah,
I just kinda feel bad for, oh, you guys, that was put in so long ago,
yeah,
things changed so much.
I know. People get nervous
I
and,
can't
well,
blame
we've
them.
seen it a few
Entertain a
times.
motion?
Make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Woohoo!
We're
Time to
adjourned.
go.